August 30th,
I'll bring you
2010.
Yeah.
And it's the tarot class about the Major Arcana of the tarot.
No, the one that I gave you.
So, actually, I have handouts.
Oh dear.
Evan, David left a bunch of tarot cards on table if you want to
Grab.
grab that.
Oh, just at my discretion?
Just whatever appeals to you.
Yeah, you really might want to take notes on it tonight. Where's my little cheat sheet? Shoot.
Well, I have one. You're looking for this one right here, of course.
No. Have them somewhere.
Scattered everywhere.
Organized.
So why are you giving us a blank one?
So you can doodle on it.
Here.
Oh, I'm already recording.
Is it red?
Okay. Oh no.
Is we're gonna cover the meanings of the major trumps, the major arcana of the tarot, and usually I have done this in a class that's like an hour and a half, and it would take about 3 weeks, so like 6 hours or something. But I'll just kind of jam it into a couple hours. So the whole deal here that makes it simpler to understand is that there's all kinds of debate about where tarot cards come from, or discussion, but we're going to say it comes from the Qabala and the Hebrew Tree of Life and the Hebrew language, and so the best way to understand it is to start with a very, very basic understanding of the Hebrew, or the mystical Qabala and the Tree of Life. So what that's about is that we're all spiritual beings, of course, and we all live in this sort of consciousness matrix. And each one of us are like a pinpoint to connecting to everything. So it's what the Tree of Life describes is a map of the unseen and a description of the creative process of divine creation. And in that sense, it's sort of a map of sort of what might be thought of as spiritual reality, or kind of, which it's only our own limits, that it's not physics. Physics is going there anyway. So the whole idea is there's this energy, and with the mystical Tree of Life, there's these 3 levels. It's called the Ain and the Ain Sof, and the Ain Sof Or. That's how you spell it, Or. And what that is it's light. So what it roughly translates as sort of light moving, light in activity, and light in extension. And what light extends into, that's what we used.
Light?
Ain Sof, and Ain Sof Or. Probably just
Light.
Light.
Light in transit.
And where it moves to is this first sphere, which is named Kether. So on the handout, it shows that the Hebrew name for that sphere, Sephiroth, is Kether, and Kether means crown. So what happens is this light energy focuses into a point, and then you get your sort of your Big Bang, or your initiation of energy in motion. So the thing about this is it's sparkly, and that's what the original swastika symbol symbolized before the Nazis got hold of it, was the first swirlings, which is generally perceived to be actually the other way, clockwise. So clockwise. So Kether that's the energy of this undifferentiated divine energy. It's like kind of the associated with like the Buddhist nirvana kind of idea of no polarities involved. All that it is their unity and motion and activity. So what happens is that in the beginning of the universe, some point that starts off and releases energy, and it creates the second sphere, which is Chokma. That's also on your sheet. And the idea is that this is the first. This is sort of the pagan lord or the masculine energy. This first energy unity sends off energy to create another sphere, and that sphere is sort of more directed energy. So from that, we'll give that one, that's sort of, we'll call it maleness. And that one creates the third sphere, which is Bina, which is the Great Mother, which is associated with the planet Saturn in astrology, and it's about form. So it's like, this is maleness, Bina is femaleness, Bina is the idea to form, Bina is sort of the idea of curved space, so there must be a limit to things on some level in order for matter to occur, which we are grateful for. So, from that Great Mother, so here you have the Lord and Lady in the pagan system, and here you have mother goddesses are symbolized here, such as Hathor, Isis, kind of primal mother goddess concept there. The maleness is kind of shoots off into that, and you get your first little triangle. But what we're concerned about here is called the lightning flash. And it was this lightning flash that creates the universe. So the lightning flash emanates from Kether to Chokma to Bina, mother, father to mother, to the fourth sphere, which is associated with Jupiter in astrology, and that's named Hesed. And Hesed is this concept of the Father God that's generous and giving, and is called the Great Benefic in astrology. It's about forming community and generosity and benevolence and all that kind of good stuff.
What about the abyss?
Oh yeah, thanks, Art.
You're welcome.
Art asked about the abyss. Let's put the abyss in there, because that's cool. Talk about the abyss. The energy creates this triad. It has some stability, but it wants more, so it crosses the abyss into what could be construed as the beginnings of physical manifestation. And so the abyss is more about human consciousness than it is about kind of any limitations on the universe. Because what it's about is that humans have access to higher reaches of vibration and divinity and higher thought and stuff, and but it doesn't happen readily, and it requires this extra step, which is what the abyss is about. It's like leaving all what you've learned behind when you cross the abyss. So, and we get back to that. So Jupiter, the giver, to Mars, the taker. In the Catholic Church, you got this thing called the sign of the cross. Fathers, how's he? Father, Son, Holy Spirit, right? And what that is it's there's a Hebrew version of that, or at least a magical Hebrew version of that, called the Kabbalistic cross, which is Ate Malkuth V'Gabor V'Gedula. And well, I think the Big Adula and Gabor is mixed up in the I don't know, Catholic one. Whatever. The idea is that's what your shoulders are. That this represents the tree of life, and the tree of life as a symbol is part of every human's consciousness. And when you're going, where are these chakras in my body, you back into it. So the left shoulder becomes Hesed, and the right shoulder becomes Mars. That's sort of Kabbalistic cross that way, and the Catholic sign of the cross that way. So Mars is kick-ass, and Mars is, of course, that's the medical symbol for male, but it's about aggressive energy. When Jupiter is this giving, and it's sort of, there's this idea that there's too much generosity, and it has to be limited, or we won't be saving for the winter, or you can't go overboard, or there's consequences for things, and so you have this martial Mars energy that sets the limits to that generosity of Jupiter. So the energy comes down and forms the sixth sphere, which is Tifereth, and Tifereth means beauty in the Hebrew, and associated with the planet, the sun, and it's the sort of the Kabbalistic heart chakra, and it's associated with died and risen gods like Jesus and Osiris, and it's associated with this kind of heart consciousness, which could be, I guess, described as compassion or kind of unconditional love for everything and everybody, and that's the heart consciousness, and it's called beauty because in the Hebrew it's the balance point. The first balance point of this back and forth energy that's shooting out of the Godhead. And that goes to Venus, Netzach, number 7. And number 7, Netzach means victory, and it's Venus, and it's this, and Venus is the attracting energy associated with like the goddesses of love and like Aphrodite.
I think I heard that one.
So, where Mars is energy going outward, Venus is the principle of attraction, and that energy of attraction. So it's associated with kind of conditional love, and things like money and luxury and good, just art and good taste. Okay, which goes to number 8, which is called Hod, or glory. It's associated with the planet Mercury. And it's about this energy it's about differentiation, it's about analysis, it's about naming things. So here we're dealing with this sort of cosmic energy coming into manifestation, and now it's reached this point where there's language and words and number and symbol and geometry and kind of stuff. Lots of stuff. It's associated with sort of Hermes and communicator gods, and it's about it's said to be like sort of the etheric kind of library in schools or on this plane. It goes down to 9, which is Yesod, which is associated with the moon. Yesod is moon's foundation. It's the astral plane. It's where, if it's a normal dream, not a super lucid weird thing, it's like where you dream at night, and where you have daydreams, and where imageries, where words take on thought forms that in the astral. It's the astral plane, and that is sort of, and then that shoots down at number 10, yay, which is Earth, the kingdom, Malkuth. It's all now. So that is, which is matter, and things are finally grounded in matter. The divine energy is finally grounded in matter. So what you have here is this lightning flash. It goes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, boom, into manifestation. And this is where, in the tarot, your 4 suits are all associated with the fire, water, air, and earth levels of these numbers. So all your aces are associated with Kether, all your 2s are associated with the Maiden, this, that, and 3s are associated with Great Mother and Saturn. So, but that's the suits in the tarot, and now to get at the major trumps in the tarot, we're not only concerned with the lightning flash, because, well, so what we're concerned with is that, of course, if these actually sort of exist, these interconnections happen. And these become paths of the tree of life. And all they connect. It doesn't actually say that. And these are our paths in the tree of life. Each, there's 22 paths, called the 22 Paths of Wisdom in the Torah and in Kabbalah. And these 22 paths, each one is associated with a different Hebrew letter in the Hebrew alphabet. And that's what we're going to look at. So each of the tarot cards then, and the major trumps you have, are numbered. And the first one is actually supposed to be the Fool, number 0.
0.
There he is. Oh, it doesn't even have 0 on this deck. It has nothing. It's a Fool. Not even the goose egg. Jeez. Let's pause it.
Pause.
I don't know what happened in my, I forgot my
Just keep your beat going.
Wait a minute. Action.
Action, oh my gosh. All
Too late. We're already rolling.
right, fine. Okay. So, this is where the major trumps of the tarot come in, and might as well start with 0.
The Fool.
The Fool. So, how to interpret these images? Well, the 0 is actually the first path. It's going from. This is so messy. This isn't going to show up on the camera. But anyway.
Oh, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to see it all.
But there's a 0, and that's this path here from 1 to 2 on the tree. Let's just emphasize that. And the goose egg there, and we see that there's this white sun in the background on my traditional deck, and with that white sun is Kether. There's Kether at his back. And what's going on here is this divine energy is making its first outpourings to kind of is going on this journey, on this to create, beginning the process to create us and manifestation. So it's very, what it shows is this sort of impulsive energy in this beginnings. And in the tarot, the Fool, you don't know if it's going to be really good, bad, or indifferent. But it's definitely going to be like kind of a rush of energy and a new direction being taken. The idea being here that the Fool has, you wonder, well, a lot of images show a Fool coming down a mountain, is sort of traditional. And then there's like a dog or animal with him, you think it's barking at his heels. Well, anyway, the whole deal here is that the Fool's not, he may be stunned, but he's not going to walk off a cliff. It's not that simple. It's, what he's doing is he's been to the top of the mountain. He's been, as we'll see in the later imagery, he's already been the hermit or chatted with the hermit, or he's been to the top of the mountain. And now he's coming back down. And that's the whole kind of, the foolish part about the Fool, I figure, is that he's been to Nirvana, so he's going to go back down into the village. Like, that's kind of the silly part. And in the Christian connotation, I think the Fool card would be where he's coming down the mountain after the Transfiguration. JC's coming down the mountain after the Transfiguration. And the Transfiguration is this thing where he goes and he's like, some of his buddy apostles are watching him transform and be in this light and talk to the dead Moses and dead Ezekiel, I think, and so JC was in this situation where he was in the interdimensional portal. He was talking to these light beings that were these guys, and he could have gone through the portal right then if he wanted, but that's the foolish part, coming back down the mountain to go through whatever, or to like play games in the village and pretend that it's, you know, that it's the be all and the end all, because you already know it's not. So there's this sort of playing quality to the Fool, but the playing quality is based on kind of some degree of enlightenment. And there's of course this old saying that, you know, like, who's closer to God, you know, the person that's standing in the community, or the crazy person, the funny beggar guy in front of the 7-Eleven. I mean, who's to say who's, you know, actually has their awareness more in the divine? Because when humans do have their awareness in the divine, they notoriously act really weird compared to everybody else. So that's kind of the concept of the Fool, and we're going to move along and begin to look at the progression here, because from the 0 we go to number 1, which links the first swirlings of Kether, a spiritual energy, into limitation. And here we have this idea of the magician, and the magician has this knowledge, and what he has knowledge of is he has knowledge of that divine energy. He's in touch with that same energy that the Fool is, but he's also in touch with its limitations and how to utilize it and how to kind of make stuff out of it. And so, hence we got number 1 is going into that sort of more grounded, not quite grounded yet, but it's certainly about this idea of secret information. And it's about, he's often depicted traditionally like his right hand up and his left hand down. So what he's doing, it's like as above, it's this occult saying, as above, so below, that what I imagine in my mind, what I'm creating, and it's all, I'll make it happen, and before me, I'm sometimes on his altar or his table or his tools of his trade, the elements in the tarot, the magician's tools, and in the Fool card, he's got his magician's tools tied up in a pack. That's what's in his sack, not the end of his stick. But in the number 1, those tools are out on the table, and he's working with them. And the idea here is about, you know, kind of it's like a ancient take on what's become so popular these days about Imagineering, and you have all these like psychologists training sports figure to visualize the puck going in and stuff, and so, you know, about this whole, because that's what this card magician is about sort of creative visualization as a process to manifesting things, making things happen. And that's what the magician does, of course. It goes from idea into things happening. Which brings us to the number 3, one of my faves. So the first 3 cards we see are emanating out from Kether. The first 2, the second to 3, card number 2, which is the 3rd card. Card number 2, which is the High Priestess, going from Kether to Tifreth in the center, 6. And that card number 2 is the High Priestess. You often see in the traditional decks is the pillars, the black and white pillars. And what the black and white pillars are this is the white pillar here, the pillar of mercy, and this is on the notes too. And this side's called the pillar of severity. And then the middle one is uniquely called the middle pillar. So that's the pillars on the High Priestess card. Is the pillars on the Tree of Life, and the Binah column is traditionally a black candle on the altar, and the Chokmah column, Mercy pillar, is traditionally the white candle on it, and that's the pillars of the High Priestess. So what she's about is this sort of mystery. She's this divine energy connecting to the reborn God. So in that sense, it's sort of, in the Christian sense, it's like it's the Virgin Mary. But it's the sense of does depict like the temple Virgin. And she carries the scroll, which is seen as the Torah in the more traditional cards, but it's just kind of this idea of a book or knowledge that she is party to. Hence the backdrop, there's often a veil behind it of some sort, and the veil also represents that there's something unknown, the secrets. And the pomegranate and palms on my traditional card are pretty well just kind of sexual metaphors. So she is this quality of kind of I've seen it as definitely kind of a goddess card, and it represents that Isis energy and that as kind of a grace that we're going to see coming down the middle pillar through the three cards. But there's another interesting thing in the traditional deck, and I'll just kind of, anybody else, am I the only one with the Rider-Waite here?
I have the deck, the Coleman.
Oh, okay, you got the
Smith.
number High Priestess there?
Yeah.
I'll just kind of pass that around, because, yeah, it's got it. It's got the, you look at her skirts, her dress, and her dress kind of flows off and begins to look like waves or water, and that's
Hey
what-
Art, hold that up for a sec. We'll zoom in on that.
Is it still enough?
Oh, there we go.
And the what that is it's the beginnings of water. In a symbology in the tarot, not water as water we drink necessarily, but kind of magical water. And the spiritual water represents emotions, and all through the tarot you're going to see this repeated symbolism of water representing emotional matters. So what she's showing us here is the Fool was this undifferentiated white light energy moving. The Magician is this spiritual energy doing practical things. It's more associated with planet Mercury. Thought processes. The High Priestess also emanates from the Godhead, the undifferentiated Godhead, and the High Priestess is feelings and the beginnings of emotional intelligence, or it is the vastness of emotional intelligence, correct? The mystery she holds. Cool. Card number three, our fourth card, is the Empress. Number three. Fourth card, Empress, 3. And here again we have the goddess energy, where the High Priestess is more Persephone, the Empress is Demeter, her mom. And because here we have the first of the series of 3 cards that and Hebrew letters that connect the left and right pillars directly. And the first card is the Empress, and it's a card of love. And You know, love is very abundant when you're up in near the Godhead. And this is like, represents abundant love. And you can see oftentimes she's sort of depicted pregnant, she's depicted as a ruler, hence the Empress. Sometimes you see the Venus symbol, which says love and life, life and love, similar to the Ankh, right? Always lush, it's just like the harvest, the field about to be, full field of grain going to be harvested, and everybody's going to be fed happy over here. And it's just great. And what you see often in the background in the Empress is a river or a waterfall. And that's looking on this one. On the traditional deck, there's a like a water in the background. And what it is it's a continuation of that water that started in the High Priestess. It's made strong.
Where is this going around?
Yeah.
What? Oh,
Okay, so that's all that Venus mothering, wonderful, blessing stuff.
whose deck is it?
Reads.
Yeah.
All right. So the fifth card and the fourth card in the deck is the Emperor. And yeah, okay, let's get red. Number 4. It's coming in over here, making this slash in here to number 6, 2 to 6. It's number 4, the Emperor. And here we have sort of the consort of the lush, loving Empress is the hard-nosed, militaristic Emperor. In a sense, they can be seen as kind of a goddess, god, kind of pairing, kind of icons, and he's holding an orb. It just means kind of rulership, like kind of regal. Sometimes you see him with this kind of ankh thing, but I just want to, I'm pretty sure that in olden days, before they discovered ground glass and telescopes to see what then he's doing on the other hill, if you wanted to really focus in on something far away, you just held up like a ring over your eye. And that's his like his spyglass. And he's got a little water in the river behind him still, that there is emotion, but obviously his domain is the arid kind of, I gotta do what I gotta do. It's not so much to do with feelings here. So, let's do the number 5, the Hierophant. And yes, we're going to do this side first, so that's number 5. 2, 2, 4 is number 5. And the Hierophant again is this sort of, is kind of macho. We're near the top, we're coming out of maleness, where, and now we're on the sort of the male pillar, and we have this card connecting to this concept of divine energy in motion, focused into Jupiter, which is about benefic gods, society, community, the bigger community, big ideas, and religiosity. But so what's religion in modern times? In modern times, what the card depicts like some sort of bishop kind of teaching some supplicants and devotees and some sort of Catholic Church or something. But what it's about is this imparting of authority. It's about sort of authority, and the sense, it's not, so on one level it certainly can be interpreted as kind of authority in communities, in the countries we live, and stuff about laws and lawmakers, and but it's also associated with kind of learning and not, so there's direct laws made by the government, enforced by the police, and then there's sort of indirect kind of laws where they'll push you around to kind of form into a nice community, which has to do with sort of schools and economic structures and very much the hierophants about sort of the ways things are done. So, in a tarot reading, this can mean things like passing a driver's test, or taking some sort of test in school, or having to deal with some sort of legal matter, or blah blah blah. But on another level, certainly it's spiritual instruction, and it kind of suggests in the whole Tree of Life kind of theories here that there is some sort of actual spiritual reality. So what we have depicted here on an earthly plane is like a bishop teaching a supplicant, but on a more spiritual plane it might be viewed as divine guidance, or angels are visiting you in your dreams, don't feel you're weird. Or that sort of inner voice, and so it's associated with clairaudience. And okay. So, which brings me to kind of a little stumble, because I don't know, what time is it?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Should say
It's 8:45.
8:45?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Should I talk about a little bit more about what they actually mean in a reading? Should we do that too? Or can we bring this stuff into the readings?
I don't know, personally I like to learn what they mean first.
Back for your notes, because remember, and there are astrological associations too, which is good to start off with these guys. So I certainly mentioned the Empress is associated with Venus, and the Emperor is associated with Mars. Well, actually not so much Mars, more it's associated with Aries, Aries. And the Hierophant is associated with Taurus, and the Lovers is associated with Gemini. Okay, so in fact we get to move over to the feminine pillar here, and number 17, the 7th card, and the number 6 is going from Saturn, Binah, the Great Mother, to number 6, heart chakra, to Frith, and it's important that it's sort of 3. Because what it depicts is this kind of a triangle, and this sort of idea of a unity and a blessing. So somehow from Binah, the Great Mother, we go into the heart of compassion, and we get the Lover's card. So that's sort of, that makes sense. It's sort of a schmaltzy way. But what it's really kind of saying here is that in the traditional image is really very complex for sort of trying to convey a simple idea. The Hebrew letter it's associated with is Zain, which means a sword. And it's associated with the sign of Gemini, so you get these sort of airy connotations or magical air connotations of the sword symbolizing the air, and Gemini being an air sign. So, and in the air we have an angel, and the man and the woman sort of depicted as Adam and Eve. And the idea is specifically it shows that the man's looking at the babe, and the babe's looking up at the angel. And it's sort of suggestive of kind of a process of the rational mind looking at focusing on the feelings, and the feelings being aware of the spiritual energy, the angelic stuff going on. The old-fashioned card, old-fashioned card which showed like a dude and two girls. And it's sort of the old-fashioned
Yeah, I've
card,
seen that.
and Cupid above, and it's more about that's like this suggests that he's got a choice to make. He's choosing between these girls, and one is supposed to be like hot, and one is supposed to be like okay hot, but not as hot, with position and money. So
what's the
you have to
card
know
called?
how, because she's got the crown, and she's the hippie, and the hippie chick, so he's got to choose between like. So what he's still this idea though of Gemini and the air quality is emphasized even more in the whole deck by this idea of a choice and a question. So it's also the Gemini, the Lover's card here is it sort of seems to have evolved from a question mark to an exclamation mark. But nonetheless, the idea is about this unity. And it's once again this unity idea that is also emphasized in another way in the next card. And the Chariot, number 7, it's a very sort of, once you kind of know what the symbol means, the traditional symbols, it's really kind of straightforward. Because what it suggests here is it's about this, where in the Lover's card we have unity of idea, and sort of thought is fleshed out, and what you say is what you do, is who you are. It's about this kind of connection to a higher vibration that comes through without interference. Sort of this idea of the Lover's card, which is sort of seen in sort of a kind of occult secret way that what they're talking about is sex. And what they're talking, and hence Adam and Eve, and what they're talking about is that sexuality as bringing you, as kind of being in line with divinity, divine energy. And then from the Lover's card, that unity and connection to divine energy is given a different sort of purpose besides just blissing out. In the Chariot, that divine energy is given some sort of, it's like, now he's got to go like, well, honey, I got to go on a business trip. So, the Chariot comes.
Leave town
Yeah, because
alone.
the Chariot means motion, or and the potential for great motion and speedy motion, potential for a process. And the process is described as the starry canopy over the charioteer, with maybe some stars on his head. This is the kind of divine reference to the night sky or the heavens. So in his mind, he's connected to the heavens. On his shoulders, there's moons or lunar symbols. That this is the reflective emotional quality, that the emotions are concerned with his armor and his, and that they are kind of next coming down the pike. And then coming into the chariot itself, which sometimes his body actually merges with the chariot, as in this one, in a weird kind of Philadelphia experiment way. But, and then of course that chariot driven by the sphinxes or the horses in some imagery, they're black and white, again referencing the black and white of the pillar of mercy and the pillar of severity. It references the physical, and the chariot being gray and square represents physical matter. And so what's going on there is he's inspired by the heavens. His mind is linked with the heavens. His emotions are sort of next, reflecting off his environment, his shoulder pads, and his breastplate into the chariot, which is driven by these sort of sphinx beings, which represent sort of his animal energies or the physical energies of physicality. So what it suggests is proper balance, kind of, is that the person who's got it together, that's the chariot. Higher mind connected to mind over feelings, all being driven in control with the body in control. So he means business. And on this chariot card too, there's that water reference again. We still got the stream going in the background. Which brings us to the next one, number...
Hang on, where does the chariot go on this? Is it?
Oh, it's
Being?
Saturn to 3 to 5.
3 to 5. Thanks.
We're done. Where's my strength? I gotta look for my strength now. Darn. Because that's next, right?
That's what they say.
And so the strength card is connecting this next one down, connecting number 4 and number 5, part of the lightning flash initially we talked about. It's the second card representing a link between the male pillar and the female pillar, and it describes the type of relationship between those energies. And where the first one was the Empress between the male and female, and it's just love, love, and abundance, and love. The next one down is strength, that connects the male and female. And we can see, you know, it right off the bat. You want to, when you're looking at tarot imagery, you want to just look at the obvious first. So what you got is the woman's in control. That's what it says. Oh yeah, that's wrong. The strength one. Yeah, they mix them up in there.
Oh, okay. I'm thrown off.
Throwing you off.
Yeah, because in some decks isn't.
Yes, yeah, that's
Justice
Crowley's
is-
tried to change it.
Yeah, because I've
We
got
tried a lot of
adjustment,
things.
whereas
Yeah.
my strength is called lust, and
Yeah.
it's 11.
Mine too.
So let's make it 8.
Hard to do.
Oh, I don't even, maybe I'm missing my strength. Gosh darn it.
This is the one in mine. Of course, it's the one.
Weird.
The strength is between 4 and 5, right?
Strength is between, yes, 4 and 5, thank you. And I don't have my card, but it's the same everywhere. It's coming with the lion. I'll talk about that one too, yeah. Yeah, show that one around, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's one where she looks like she's about to pop a great big pimple.
But it's the cosmic pimple.
That's crazy.
So what we got here is, yeah, the woman's in control. So she's, it's about this sort of natural, thanks. It's about this sort of natural intelligence. It's about instinct, and it's about how instinct and about how it's nature that there would be, that somehow the beast is tamed. It's a natural
Manipulation
process.
comes in there somewhere.
Manipulation's in there for sure. She's got him by the,
Yeah, but
By the
it's
short
right
hair.
and the whole idea with the lion's mouth thing is there's this tradition that she's getting the lion to speak and there's some sort of real alchemical symbolism in there, I'm sure, which also has to do with sex. So, but what she's like, you know, there is a correlating kind of, it's associated with the sign Leo, certainly, but
Virgo's in there
it's not-
somewhere.
as far as a goddess interpretation or association, not so much. And unless it's the idea of the huntress or Artemis kind of idea. But she's here retaining the line. Oftentimes her hat, or there's somewhere there's a lemon skate symbol, and we saw the lemon skate symbol in the magician card. And we see it again in the strength card. And this lemon meaning kind of infinity, or awareness is connected to infinities. She's also, so this whole idea is that strength is more, so maybe that's why I have trouble with this card. It's about self-discipline.
Fun suit.
But here, but again, from the male to the female, there's lots of energy. It's not just expressed as love now, or a little octave down, and now she's expressing that connection between male and female with this idea of control.
Exactly. Sure there's not a Virgo in this one.
So yes, the next one for sure though is the Hermit. I'm trying to change colors, man. And the Hermit is going from 4 to 6. He's not that tricky. He's associated with the Hebrew letter Yod, which I only bring up this time because it comes up again. And the Yod is a Hebrew letter. It's almost like the only vowel. And it has like a E or I sound. And it's the traditional image, of course, the old guy on top of the mountain. And now our waters of emotions are frozen up into the snow and ice. And it's really rather kind of straightforward, because of what it represents is guidance. So what the heck are you holding up a light on the mountain for? Well, it's one to see where you're going, I guess.
So you don't fall off the cliff.
Fall off the cliff like a fool. And it's because he's helping the other people find him, is what he's doing there. He's helping the rest of the group find him. So in that sense, it's a beacon, kind of, it represents that, and it represents, well, what do you do when you go up to the old guy in the mountain, like you ask a question and get some advice or whatever. So he's the old wise guy in the mountain. In this biblical deck I'm working on, this is John the Baptist, because he's like the perfect hermit in the wilderness, and wearing like kind of animal skins and eating bugs. And but the sense here is of that this is purification, advice. So this can be, but not only like, so in a tarot reading it can be getting advice or giving advice, but it's also associated with lots of other stuff, because it's the spiritual quality of having taken advice, good advice. It's about kind of an inner guidance as well, following one's inner guidance, which is not just, and it can mean just sort of cocooning on your couch and being a hermit. But there's this connotation with this card, though, that is because you're meditating, or there's a purpose behind it, because there's value. He's, in a sense, both him and the emperor are associated with. I might as well jump in with a bit with this idea of Jupiter and the demigod, and the idea that Hesed and Jupiter and this guy, the hermit, and the emperor is this traditional, the old white bearded old man, wise guy, and or slash Jehovah God, associated with like Odin and Jupiter and this idea that this being thinks he's God, but he's sort of a junior God, and he doesn't even know it. Because on the other side of the abyss is his mom and dad, and even their prime mover and originating energy, still active. But he just sees himself as, poof, here I am, I'm in control, I must be God. And hence the concept of the demigod. And the hermit is an aspect of that, but it's about kind of this process of gaining in wisdom. And now if this comes up in a reading, it's a lot of times it means following just kind of your own advice, like kind of deciding that maybe you better watch your nutrition, and I better get some exercise, and I better not have such wicked hangovers, because I'm sure I've lost some blade cells. And, it's about following your own advice.
Hey Dave, there's like 3 minutes left on the tape.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Do you have another tape? Or?
I have another tape.
Okay.
Pause. Following just kind of your own advice, like kind of deciding that maybe you better watch your nutrition, and I better get some exercise, and I better not have such wicked hangovers, because I'm sure I've lost some blade cells. And, it's about following your own advice.
Hey Dave, there's like 3 minutes left on the tape.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Do you have another tape? Or?
I have another tape.
Okay.
Pause. We move on to number 10. Number 10 is the Wheel of Fortune. And all of a sudden we've gone from, like all of them depict kind of people doing stuff. And now there's no people in this image, most of the time. There are some weird creatures though. And sometimes there's 4 angels in the corners. And these guys come up again. These are the 4 angels of the quarters in ceremonial magic and Wicca and the guardians of the quarters sort of thing. And they're associated with the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. So you always have a Leo for lion, and a bull for Taurus, and an angel for Aquarius, and an eagle for Scorpio. And the 4 cherubim, they're called, and they come up again in the world card, and the wheel. And so what all this stuff, what's it about? What it's about then is this energy and consciousness between Jupiter and Venus, Jupiter, Venus over here. So No, they're not the four horsemen.
I was just throwing that. I was seeing if you'd bite.
Maybe you're a weird guy.
I have a monkey on mine.
Yeah, monkey, yeah. The monkey is representative of Thoth, and as a baboon was a symbol for Thoth in the Egyptian, and representing this messenger god and learning and all these wonderful highfalutin concepts. I have this red guy, which is supposed to be like Set, and a sphinx, and a snake, a serpent, symbolizing all the things the serpent does, like Ouroboros, the whole universe, and Kundalini energy and knowledge, and the snake things, of course. And the four guys quarter. So what we got here is not a person depicted, but more, it's like almost, it's just a wheel and a cog. And think of this as the machinery. This is just kind of, it's describing the blessings are coming from the demigod, Jupiter. This one is the blessings of things working. That the sun turns around, we go around the sun and the earth swings around and the moon's around us, and this is associated, the wheel here is the wheel of astrology, the wheel here is the wheels of the cosmos, the wheels here are the wheels that keep us, keep the sun rising every day, and that's something to be thankful for from the Jupiter. It's part of the, but here it's almost about the mechanisms. And so when it comes to human consciousness, like in a reading, it's not so much about, it's about kind of the mechanisms of life and the cycles of life. And sometimes those cycles can be hairy, which is why you got demons kind of god here going around the circle, and there's sort of opposites on the outer rim of the circle.
I've got an alligator on mine.
Yeah, it's a set thing.
Okay.
The idea that
So death.
is, like the Set, the god that fought Horus and dismembered Osiris. Osiris' nasty brother.
Ah, okay.
So the idea here is like in any wheel, it calls to mind like a little wheel. They probably don't even have in playgrounds anymore because of lawsuits, but when it's so fun, you go around in the thing and wee, and the more you are towards the rim, the faster you're going, the more likely you go flying off and name yourself. But if you get into the center, if you're on the axis of the wheels of life, it's like you just watch it go by.
Called a merry-go-round.
Yeah, merry-go-round.
Merry-go-round, but except you can go in the center.
Yes.
And so that's kind of the idea with the Wheel of Fortune, is it's once you can recognize it, it's a knowledge thing, and that's why all my angels are reading books on my card.
I was going to ask you about that. All of mine are reading
Yeah,
books too.
because it's saying that this is like a hard facts kind of deal here. It's about the knowledge of the way things work, and a knowledge of karma, and a knowledge of you create your own reality, and a knowledge of this, that, and the other thing, and even down to astronomy and science. And a knowledge of things will give you a different perspective if you want it. Of course, you can always go out to the edge if you're looking for a thrill, but hopefully you have the common sense to come back into the center when you need to. And that's the real metaphor to kind of life. You can on the edge if you want to, but as long as you have the knowledge to be the fool and jump off go back down the mountain to the silly village if you want to. Go out to the edge of the circle if you want to, of the wheel, but in that connection to kind of the centering. You need the center. And that's what that's done. Oftentimes when we meditate on the on this card, and for me, and I think, and other people have confirmed it too, that if you're doing creative visualization meditation with the Jupiter card, which is also associated with Jupiter again. The Wheel of Fortune it's like outer space. It's like, oh, well, there's the Earth going around the sun and this and that, and that's what it's about. And how those cycles manifest in human life. So, next on the agenda, contrary to some decks,
Which we won't name.
is the Justice card, yes. So number 11 in some decks, number 8 in others. And it's actually supposed to, I mean, it's second guessing here, but it's supposed to be a woman. Because again, it's feminine energy. Because now we've shifted over here, number 10, number 11. From 5 to 6. Down the lightning flash, another lightning flash one. And this does have sort of the goddess connotation of sort of Minerva or Athena as sort of the feminine energy, but a martial kind of energy, and decisive energy, and potentially severe energy. Crowley calls it adjustment, and rather than justice, because it's emphasizing this scaled process of weighing. So what is it the weighing about? The weighing's about kind of good and bad karma. And anytime you see a scale, it's referencing the original scales in the Egyptian mythology. And if you're not familiar with that, it's like when you're dead, they go and weigh your heart on a scale. The gods do. Anubis does. It's Mahat's scale, the goddess of justice. Mahat, or how do you pronounce that? And on one end is the scale is your heart, and the other side of the scale is a feather. So if you're to go on, like go to heaven or whatever, or to go on from into the sunny afterlife, you have to be very light-hearted. So these scales are referencing Mahat scales, and the sword is like this delivery of justice. That not so much the idea that you're going to get like kind of whacked if you don't measure up. It's not quite, but maybe a little areas of your life might get trimmed down. And this is the idea. This card's going to come up for all kinds of things. It can simply come up for legal matters. But it's very much, again, she has the imagery of a drapery behind her, and that connects to the High Priestess again, which is this idea of a mystery behind the pillars, this idea that she's got some knowledge or power that we can't readily understand, that our understanding of would be beyond the abyss. That's always the veil in the back. So, she's not so much, but she's going to make adjustments, and it's associated with the Hebrew letter Lamed, which looks like the planet Saturn. The Hebrew letter Lamed, Lamed in the language means an ox goad, and the letter looks like kind of this stick that you kind of push your oxen with when you're like rolling down the road. And so this idea of the Justice card represents this idea of motivation and discipline and just kind of making things happen. There's always there is a judgment card kind of sense. There's a judgment card, but the Justice card probably has more to do with that idea of judgment per se, or a decision being made. And that adjustment, Crowley's idea is very correct as well, in that it's about adjusting things in life. That we've gone from, it's saying, because the Wheel of Fortune can have this connotation of good fortune, that things are going to be rolling, things are rolling, things are going to come in. The next card is saying, kind of, wait a minute, but what are you capable of handling? What are you capable of doing? Those are great big ideas. Going from the grand ideas to kind of the Justice card is saying, yeah, but what's going to work? And associated with, in the Crowley deck, and maybe some other astute decks, with the Harlequin of kind of,
Black and white checks.
yeah. and sometimes she's masked as injustice is blind, or the not prejudging. Maybe place. So we're going to move from that to countdown. 11, 12, the hangman. My face. Mentioning a new concept. Okay, the hangman is one of the 3 Hebrew mother letters. In the Hebrew tradition, in the Torah, there's 3 letters from which the other letters have emanated. And the 3 letters are kind of contain the purified essence of those qualities, and they are the fool, which is the letter Aleph, the fool, the letter Mem, the hangman, and the letter Shin, which is the judgment card, or last judgment. And each of these 3 cards represent the fool is air, or represent elements. The fool, it represents elemental air, magical air. The Mem card represents water, the element of water. And the Shin card represents the element of fire. There is no representative mother card of earth, because earth is seen as the combination of all. So the hangman, it's weird, eh? Because he's not, most times he's depicted hanging upside down, and he's not in distress. He's like, la la, this sort of funny expression. So what it shows to Goya is that in one sense it's Odin hanging from the tree for days on end or whatever until he got his answers. In another sense though, he's doing yoga. He's meditating. That's why he's hanging upside down. In this traditional, that's a pretty traditional card. This is another traditional card. He's got a halo representing spirituality. He's on this T, or he's hanging from this T. I got that one. Which represents sort of earth. And then he's doing this thing. Oh my gosh, I'm going to need some whiteboard. He's always usually crossing his legs, and it's making a symbol. And the symbol he's making is this, with his body. And it's the triangle underneath the cross of matter. The cross always represents earth or matter. This astrological symbol for earth is this. What we have here is the idea of materiality, or earthy stuff, is over on top of the spiritual stuff, the fire triangle, triangle of fire, or kind of breaching triangle. So what he's saying here is that there is a stuckness, there is a delay, there is a time of kind of practical considerations are kind of over and above kind of spiritual concerns right now for him. But that's why he's meditating, because he's trying to recapture that or connect to that spirit, which is always there. It's just not happening in his environment yet. There's a delay time. There's a delay time between, not so much to do with time either, but there's a delay between kind of attitude and manifestation, the mental set, the mindset, thought forms, and when thought forms manifest. And that's because first they got to go down the river. They go down the astral river through the waters that is Mem. In some of the decks, this is cool. Do you want to show that one? Because it reminds me of that old crusty movie of the Vikings where they like tie up Tony Curtis in the tidal pool, and then the water's getting higher and higher.
The crabs.
The crabs are coming to eat him up. Yeah. But he's in a dry river. He's got his head there. He's like waiting. I don't know. It's like the waters are going to come give him a kind of hair wash any minute now.
Is that what the triangle is?
He's got his head dangling in a river. Dry river. Yeah, like that. It's Tony Curtis.
It is. When I was getting around this.
But here we have this huge major concept here of water, and what that means is astral stuff in motion, and I mean even like of course in the Stargate TV show. Whenever they go through the Stargate, they always got to go through this wall of it's like water. It's like liquid, right? And so that's the kind of magical water that this represents, this sort of astral substance. It's like the slime that gets them in Ghostbusters. It's the
Ectoplasm.
ectoplasm. But here he's going to immerse himself in the ectoplasm. His spiritual ideas are charged up. It shows that he's doing his yoga. He's on, but he's sort of stuck there as well, and he's got to wait for this process to unfold. And that's that process of how the water astrally things move that are carried in astral. And that's the hangman.
Where is it? Thing?
5 to 8. Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, cool, Daphne. Death is between 6 and 7, part of the lightning flash. And it's between, no,
Between 6 and 7. Oh, there we are.
6 and 7. So between the god, sort of the between where the risen god hangs out, which is sort of the beauty heart space, and it's sort of it's the path between conditional love and unconditional love. And it's associated with Scorpio. So yes, it is associated with sex, which is of course the petite mort, right? French. And they know what they're talking about there as a loss of ego. And what the death card here is about is it shows there's so many, but the whole idea with the skeleton symbol here is that it's our common denominator. That if you take the trappings of ego away, or the clothes away, or the role a person plays in society, or even their kind of, whether they're a man or woman or whatever, it's like deep down we're bones. We're like a sack of flesh and bones. But it's all spiritual substance here. And what the death card is saying is that it's sort of shown as the great equalizer. And in the traditional card, we got like people of all, the king and the bishop and the kids and different all kind of levels of society are like
I said to stand up.
bite at one point or the other. And then there's that other real macabre image, which is in some cards, of the body parts. And it's really creepy, but he...
That's the one where
Well, like you got your
sometimes
hand
get
and your
dragon
foot in the
and then
field
comes
or whatever.
dragon gets you.
Yeah.
But it shows that death idea as a harvesting, and it's showing not only harvesting, but the reseeding. Now I didn't know you could like clone people. What's what he's doing? He's He's cloning people from those bits.
Just water and
It's,
watch.
yeah, he's not only harvesting his garden, but he's also sowing his garden. It's a nod to sort of reincarnation in that way of their seeds. But the idea here is, jump to the moon card. I may not even get to talk about it tonight, but dig it out. The moon card. Because the moon card's in the death card, at least in mine, these old-fashioned ones.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
answered my
It's,
question about
It's
that.
18. If you're looking for numbers.
And because in the background of the death card is the sun rising over these pillars, and then the moon card, it's the moon over the pillars.
Oh yeah.
And even his hat looks like an alligator or something, and that's a symbol too. But in yours you got a lobster, crayfish. And the idea here is the moon is the primordial kind of ooze. The ectoplasmic stuff. The moon, interesting enough, is associated with the Hebrew letter kuf, which translates as the back of the head. So the moon is sort of associated with instincts and sort of the reptilian brain. And it's about sort of chemicals and awareness and body awareness and about sort of glands. It's about glandular thinking.
Back to sex.
Yes, back to sex. And since we're jumping here at the moon, it's number 18 is between 10 and 7. So what we're doing is just kind of jogging from 13 down to 18 through Venus there. So so the moon here is interesting. It shows sometimes it shows a crayfish or something, or a fish, and it shows a wolf and a domesticated dog at times. And the idea here is it's about evolution. It's about instincts. Both the domesticated dog and the wild dog are both howling at the moon. It's their instinct. They can't help it. It doesn't matter if you're domestic or wild. It doesn't, or slimy, like the crayfish. What it's saying to the crayfish is being drawn out of the water. What it's about here is sort of natural processes of evolution and growth and feeling. And it's about these natural processes that pull us out of the 3D perspective that is down here in the earth, Malkuth. And the moon is one of these paths out of the 3D world. And it's because you have significant dreams and because you have impassioned feelings that are out of control that we begin to even try to better ourselves or control or have some sort of awareness. And then in the death card, the awareness comes. Yay!
What about temperance?
Because what was just kind of compulsive with the moon's influence, and now that when the sun rises in the death card, back to the death card, when the sun rises in between those two pillars in the death card, there's what was cloudy, what was glandular thinking, what was pure emotional response becomes understood and part of one's awareness. So it can be clarity. Death card is very much about emotional clarity and kind of having understanding around those things.
When did we get to 18?
We jumped from because
Yeah,
of
what
the,
happened to temperance and
where I
alcohol?
jumped. So now from 13 to 14. Temperance. It means the Hebrew letter Samek, I hope, which means prop or tent, like a tent peg or tent prop. But the whole idea of a tent peg or tent pole is not that what it is. It's more this idea of with a simple kind of pole and a string and a tent peg, you can create a structure. And the reason you're creating the structure is because of the tension. And that's what this card's about, is like inner tension. Temperance doesn't mean, well, not necessarily not drinking, but it means sort of temperance in moderation in kind of all things. It's the middle way of sort of the Buddha's teachings. It's about maintaining a balance. What she's got, he, because it's sort of an androgynous angel, is usually has two chalices or engaged in mixing. It's passion and reason is what he's mixing. He's mixing the reason of number 8 and the passion of number 7. That's what's in his cups. So he's, and another emphasis on my guy is has a foot in the water and a foot on land, and then there's a path to like the heavenly realm where all the answers and the truth in the distance. So it's starting this path. It's this the tension that you feel when you're saying kind of, I don't want to drink, if you're so inclined. Or it's the tension that's saying, well, I gotta go home and get some rest. Or it's the tension that's saying that, or it's the tension conversely of like, I'm gonna go out on this stage and there's a bunch of people, or I'm gonna do this public speaking engagement, or I'm gonna like do something I'm not used to, or I'm gonna like go bungee jump, or but it's that whole idea of that kind of. On one level, it could be anxiety. On another level, it's challenging oneself and kind of doing something different outside of the box. And what it's saying here is that takes training, and it takes kind of some energy. And that angel is saying that it's a spiritual path, and it's about that guidance. So in readings, the temperance card often has to do another angel, same darn angel that was in the lover's card. And because it's about this quality of following the guidance and responding to the guidance, and that our response is a vibration. From, glad we got in on the devil here.
What was that previous town?
Yes, where was it?
Oh yeah, 6 to 9. Part of the middle pillar. So which brings me to another reference, is that so far the middle pillar we've covered is from the Godhead via the High Priestess card to this risen God Son, and now we've gone, and temperance from the heart chakra to the astral levels. Kind of the sexual chakra is temperance. Temperance, any kind of training and that sort of thing, and leads us to the devil. Well, there's so much in that, because the devil is associated again with Capricorn, but there's all kinds of references in the devil card to Mercury as well. And so our traditional image is we got this like Baphomet guy, but he's got this torch, which brings us to mind the biblical Lucifer as the angel, Lucifer meaning light bearer, that the angel that was cast down from heaven but somehow is bringing to us light, the light bearer, that it's sort of bringing to like kind of a challenge. And this idea of a challenge is inherent in the devil card. I've seen it in another deck called Temptation. They don't call it the devil, they call it this card Temptation. Another sense of looking at it is the man and the woman, they're in this situation, they're chained to kind of materialism or materiality, and they kind of, but the idea is that they could take the chains off their necks if they wanted.
It's kind of like
demons.
demons.
Yeah. but he's the light bearer, and he's on this pedestal, and Solva Coagula, those are alchemical process of dissolving and coagulating. And he's got the Mercury symbol on his crotch there, which is interesting. So there's lots to be gone here, but let's look at the whole kind of reverse pentagram thing. So, of course, the pentagram is a pagan symbol, and but it means kind of spirit, that these are the four elements: fire, air, earth, and water, and surmounted by spirit. Spirit over top. Spirituality over the four elements that make up materiality. And so when you see the symbol of the first pentagram, what it's suggesting is materiality over spirituality. But those of kind of Wiccans might be aware that the whole reverse pentagram is not necessarily an evil thing either, that it's the whole symbol for the second degree. And because what that's saying here, and what the devil card is talking about, is that spirit is deep in matter. Matter is spirit expressed. And so what this card is about is it's saying that the reverse pentagram is saying is that there's a process of individualization. Solva Coagula. That's the clue. He's got it. Can I show that one? Solva Coagula is this alchemical process that's where things dissolve and then they reform in a different way. And so what it's about is saying there's this alchemical process that's about transmutation. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that this transmutation requires, part of the process is this getting down deep into matter. And it's the shadow self, and that it's about, in a psychological sense, it's about an awareness of the shadow and getting the light into the shadow, and that the shadow either needs to be understood or it will just express itself somehow when you least expect it. So it's about this process, again, on the second degree thing I'm sort of trying to get at here, where in the spiritual sense of we're engaged in a spiritual pursuit. If you're engaged in spiritual pursuits, you're hypothetically climbing Jacob's ladder, whatever you want to know. You're trying to become more enlightened, more aware, more peaceful, more... It's got to help somehow, right? Where the process of the pentagram reversed is that you can't really make any spiritual upward progress until you got into ground. So carrying the shadow, you can't cut off bits of you and say, I don't like that, but now I can see.
Despite what's
So it's many kind of gradients of the Tower card, and the reading can see what is following it, how this person is taking this. This is some sort of event or news, but how the person takes it depends on whether it's destroyed their whole self-image and their whole life or their whole ego constructs, or if they were just able to open the top of their head and accept the revelation. Either way, it's that idea of this being in the path of change and this energy's coming through. There's also kind of connotations around the three windows and the flames and stuff that are about alchemy and about, already mentioned, as transmutation. And we have this idea of alchemy going on not only in the Devil card previously, well, and the idea of alchemy certainly goes back to the Temperance card and the blending and the mixing of the passion and reason, the mixing of the stuff. Crowley calls the Temperance card art, and that's what it's about, is creating art, the creative process. And the creative process can be seen as an alchemical process when you get into the Devil, where it's dissolving boundaries and patterns in the Devil, and how things come back together and then are energized in the Tower card. Again, this sort of alchemy that started in Temperance, into the Devil, into the Tower, into the Star, number 17, and the Star is between 9 and 7. And it's really kind of a complex card, but what is balanced is between the awareness of the astral, between the astral and 9, and passions and sort of personal emotions in 7. And what we have here is kind of the beauty of emotions. And what we have here is sort of when emotions are expressed with a little poise. And you know, it's always the woman in the urns, but it's always kind of something to do with poise, if you ask me. But it's really complex. It's associated with Aquarius, the sign Aquarius, which of course is blue, no, purple for Aquarius. Sort of, yeah. Aquarius, wavy lines. So what we see here is all kinds of associations with Aquarius, associated with planet Uranus, associated with wavy lines, associated with radio waves, with technology, with waves, wave energy. It's also, but what it's more about is that there's one set of waves, there's how a pattern in how things work. There's another set of waves below that. What this suggests is that people can come and find poise by trying to emulate sort of a higher symbol or a higher kind of awareness. That there's the spiritual wave, and then the wave below it is the human wave, personal human wave, trying to emulate that. And when that emulation happens, that's when the idea of the stars, the insight, the spiritual awareness happens. Another interesting thing I really like is the star cards associated with the Hebrew letter named Zadai. And Zadai as a word means fish hook. And so here in the star card is this Aquarian idea that we may think we are the ones trying to kind of increase our awareness or go to a higher plane or ascend. But what's really happening is we're being fished for by the higher intelligence and being pulled up. So that's the fish hook idea. She's always got another foot in the water, foot on the land, like the Temperance card. This balance is connoted. Sometimes you can read things into it, though she's focusing her eyes on the water one. She's focusing on the emotion rather than the practical. There's the knowledge bird in the background. Those stars have been talked about as representing Sirius, the important Egyptian star, the dog star, which is Sirius, or also it's seen as the seven sisters, seven stars being the Pleiades. So here we have this idea of emotional, kind of on like a super esoteric level, a macrocosm level. This could be intelligences all through the cosmos, and both kind of alien and grounded and spiritual intelligences all through the cosmos, and on that can actually connect to. On another level, though, it's and maybe more importantly, it's emotional poise and kind of appreciating the emotions rather than being kind of tortured. Okay, now we're moving right along to 18. We did 18.
We did 18.
Yay, the
18
moon.
was,
The moon.
Yeah.
Which is, we're going to skip right over that because we talked about all those emotional stuff. And now 1819 is between 8 and 9, between Mercury, Hod, and the astral. And it's sort of this idea of the mind, sort of the conscious awareness, the rational mind linked with the dreams. And do you know what that's about? It's about fun. It's about innocence. It's about friendship. It's about sharing and caring and the innocence of childhood. And sometimes there's a wall depicted, and there's another traditional image I got here somewhere, which is the kid on a horse and a wall. Well, it's always to be remembered in the Sun card and in Crowley's deck too that they're outside of the wall. They're not in the wall. They're not enclosed. They're outside of the enclosure. And so it represents this kind of freedom and just kind of fun and innocence, and it can really mean sort of just play and creative energy working, like this kind of a fullness of awareness that's to be sort of played with and enjoyed. Between 8 and, which brings us to a biggie here, 20. And 20 is judgment, or the last judgment, between 8 and 10. And as long as I've gone this far, I gotta go finish up.
Mm-hmm.
Because it ties it all together when you finish up.
It's a big finish.
Alright, big finish. 20, the judgment, it's the Hebrew letter shin, which maternal letter for fire. It's about not so much the last judgment as, because there's oftentimes an angel and a resurrection depicted, and sometimes there's angels blowing a horn. Well, it's not the last judgment horn. It's more sound judgment. Sound judgment is what it means. Sound judgment. It's about, and what it depicts is hearing this call and responding to a call that is sort of inspiration or a spiritual message. That life gives us spiritual messages, whether that's in a dream or a deja vu, or you're getting messages all the time that there's more to life than flesh and bone. And this is the idea of responding to that message or that call and creating a new awareness. They emerge from their coffins. Doesn't mean they're rising from the dead, but it means that they're coming into a much bigger life, a new awareness, and a much broader horizons. Which that rising from the dead is a metaphor for. The cross on it can have to do with all kinds of stuff like Knights Templar. It's the cross. Sometimes it's really about responding to the call, that it's about bringing more, not only more awareness or a bigger life, but trying harder and bringing that awareness into action, into life as it's lived. Because what's going on here is the judgment card can be about all medical issues, because that's the medical cross on it. And what it can be about, it's just times when we are pushed by life into giving our all, or trying harder, or doing more, or increasing our awareness. It's how life encourages us to kind of do more, be more aware. And cool. It also has to do with community and relating to others, which is what oftentimes there's a whole bunch of people or a family in it too, but that's definitely a part of that, coming out of oneself into the community around. That's part of the call oftentimes. Although oftentimes the call is straight, very, very inward and personal as well. Which brings us to 21, the world or the universe between 9 and 10. And here once again we have our 4 cherubim of the fixed signs of the zodiac. The lion and the bull and the angel and the eagle. And I was organizing. There she is. And it's the last. Remind us that the middle pillar was the high priestess, temperance, and the universe or the world. And even though the temperance is sort of androgynous, you see that this whole middle pillar is, for the most part, feminine energies. It's a woman depicted, although there's some debate whether it's supposed to be a hermaphroditic figure. But she's coming through this laurel, which was a victory kind of symbol in ancient times, laurel wreath. And she's got these, she's sort of dancing. And what this is it's about, it's the Hebrew letter Tav, which is the T, which is, was in some of the hangmans. He's hanging from a T. This is the T. And this is that, the square of matter. So it's connecting how things come from thought forms, from astral energy into matter. It's the whole birthing process. She's coming through the oval, but it's also not just the birthing process, it's the creative process. It's the creative process, not just the procreative process. And it's about how things come into matter when it's all covered. The fire, air, earth, and water, which is what? The creative vitality, the energy, the thought, the feelings, and the materials needed to make it happen. The 4 elements. And what we see is this birth process, but we also see that it works both ways. And what's really kind of important to look at as we finally covered them all is the 3 cards that come up from Earth. Because we look at Earth as grounded, as 3D reality, it's 3-dimensional reality stuck in time, where the Church of Science reigns supreme. And things just, that's the way it are. It's common sense and all that bullshit. Because common sense is really too common. So, but what this describes is the 3 different paths that draw us out of our 3-dimensional reality. And those 3 paths are the judgment, the world or the universe, and the moon. And these 3 paths are about what draws us out of our simpler awareness, or into a higher awareness is the creative process and the middle pillar and feminine goddess energies that are pouring in all the time, and this can be just viewed as sort of grace, and the universe is very much to do with this sort of grace that emanates from the High Priestess and how that's delivered. But that's also then part of the creative process of just making one's life and also making art, and the creative process that helps us to evolve and refine ourselves and do better and express myself better. And then the moon card, which is glandular thinking and evolution, that growth is natural, that even amoebas in the primordial slime are going to create bodies and creatures and evolve and grow. And humans do that too when they at least need to recognize, when they at least recognize their emotional awareness. Sometimes it leads them onto kind of crimes of passion and utter stupidity. But other times it leads them to create great art and to be more. So we got the moon taking us from three-dimensional reality into the impassioned life. We got the universe taking us from three-dimensional reality through an in-tuneness with our own creative process in life. And we have 20 taking us out of ourselves and into a higher awareness through the influence of kind of curiosity and community and interconnecting with others. And I had that this is kind of the fires. We have all kinds of awareness though going on, because this is sort of book learning and curiosity too. And it's the fire. I had a meditation once on the judgment path, and it was like being in some past life where there was a bunch of soldiers or an army encamped in these hills, but there was hundreds of fires, hundreds of fires at supper time. You get a few thousand people, you get hundreds of fires.
I think that's what this is down here, these little yards.
That's the
down
Shin symbol in the
Yeah.
fire. Yeah. And this whole idea then in the Shin of that came to me that, well, most people love staring into fires, so, but if there's anything that's going to connect you to a past life awareness, it's staring in a fire, because you've been doing it for 100,000 years. You've been staring into a fire.
Hey Dave, you got about a minute left to say anything
So,
that's really...
all right, we'll wrap it up. So that sort of awareness stuff, knowledge, curiosity, community, what do they do over there? It's going to bring you out of your 3D perspective and creative process, and the passions bring you out into that higher level. Even if you're some weird kind of impassioned Latin that's involved in some murder or something, that's the extreme of sort of the moon card, pulling us out of mundane. So, there, we're done.
So those are the cards.
Those are the cards. Those are the major trumps.
All right.
Cool, eh?
Totally cool. Woo.
And then, gee, I probably could have crammed it into, maybe 4 hours, and then I can at least talk about what they mean in the readings too.
Wow.
Right on.
What a messy board.
This one goes here.
It all worked.
What means that?